Hey everyone, welcome back to Study English Online, your cozy little place to practice real English through real conversations. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jake, and today's episode is honestly one of my favorites to record because we're talking about English mistakes everyone makes. And I do mean everyone. Beginners, advanced learners, and even native speakers sometimes.
Yes, and I think that's such an important thing to say right at the start. These mistakes aren't a sign that you're bad at English. They're just really common patterns that trip up almost everyone at some point.
Exactly. So today, no judgment at all, just honest, practical correction, and hopefully a few laughs along the way too, because some of these mistakes are honestly pretty funny once you notice them.
We're going to cover grammar mistakes, word confusion pairs, preposition mistakes, common phrase errors, and even mistakes native speakers make. So you can feel a little more confident knowing you're definitely not alone in this.
And of course, real role-play conversations, so you can hear these mistakes and corrections in natural, everyday contexts.
Stick around until the end for our full practice conversation, where we bring everything together naturally.
Let's get into it.
So, Jake, let's start with the big question. Why do you think certain mistakes are so common, even among learners who've been studying English for years?
Honestly, I think it's because a lot of these mistakes come from patterns in someone's native language or from words that just sound really similar in English, so the brain naturally mixes them up.
Right, and I think there's also something about how English has so many exceptions to its own rules, which makes it genuinely tricky, even for people who understand the general grammar really well.
Exactly. And honestly, that's such an important thing to remember. Mistakes aren't really about intelligence or effort. They're just part of the natural process of learning a language with so many quirks and irregularities.
Let's talk about a useful phrase here. It's a common pitfall, meaning a mistake that many people fall into, often without realizing it. Confusing affect and effect is such a common pitfall, even for native speakers.
Great phrase, and honestly, such a reassuring way to frame today's whole episode. These aren't personal failures, they're common pitfalls that we can identify and fix together.
Let's get into the specific categories now, starting with grammar.
Let's start with one of the most common grammar mistakes, subject-verb agreement, especially with tricky subjects. Anna, can you give an example?
Sure. A common mistake is saying everybody are here instead of everybody is here. Words like everybody, everyone, somebody, and nobody are actually singular, even though they refer to a group of people.
Right, that trips up so many learners because it feels like it should be plural. Let's practice this. Anna, use everyone correctly in a sentence.
Sure. Everyone is invited to the party this weekend.
Perfect. Singular verb is, even though everyone refers to many people. Let's talk about another common grammar mistake, mixing up much and many. Much goes with uncountable nouns, many goes with countable nouns. I don't have much time left, but I don't have many options right now either.
Perfect example. Let's talk about another really common mistake, using the present tense instead of the present perfect for experiences. I never been to Paris instead of I have never been to Paris.
Right. Forgetting have or has in the present perfect is such a common pattern, especially for learners whose native language doesn't have a similar tense structure.
Let's practice this. Jake, tell me about an experience using the present perfect correctly.
Sure, I'll take this one. I have visited 3 different countries this year, and honestly, it's been an amazing experience so far.
Perfect. Have visited and it's been, both correctly using the present perfect. Let's talk about one more common grammar mistake, confusing who and whom. Honestly, even many native speakers get this one wrong constantly.
Right. The simple trick is, who is for the subject of a sentence, whom is for the object. Who called you versus to whom did you send the letter? Though, honestly, in casual conversation, most native speakers just use who for both these days.
That's such a helpful, reassuring note, listeners. Don't stress too much about whom in casual speech. Even native speakers rarely use it correctly anymore.
Now, let's move to prepositions, which are honestly one of the trickiest parts of English for almost every learner because there often isn't a clear logical rule. You just have to remember the correct pairing.
Right. Let's start with a really common one, married with instead of married to. A common mistake is saying I'm married with Sarah when it should be I'm married to Sarah.
Great example. Let's talk about another common one. Good in instead of good at. I'm good in math should actually be I'm good at math.
Let's practice this. Jake, use good at correctly in a sentence.
Sure. I'm really good at solving puzzles, but I'm not very good at cooking, unfortunately.
Perfect example. Let's talk about another really common preposition mistake. Depend of instead of depend on. It depends of the weather should be it depends on the weather.
Right, and one more really common one. Different than versus different from. Actually, both are used in casual American English, but different from is generally considered more grammatically correct in formal contexts.
Good clarification. Let's talk about arrive to versus arrive at or arrive in. A common mistake is saying I arrived to the airport when it should be I arrived at the airport for smaller places or I arrived in Paris for cities and countries.
Let's practice this distinction. Anna, use both arrive at and arrive in correctly.
Sure, I'll take this one. I arrived in Tokyo late last night, and then I arrived at my hotel around midnight.
Perfect. Notice the difference there. In for the larger city, at for the specific smaller location. Let's talk about one more common preposition mistake. Listen music instead of listen to music, since listen always needs to before the object. I like listen music should be I like listening to music.
Great example, and notice that one has two mistakes actually, missing to and also needing listening with an ing after like. Let's summarize this preposition section. Married to, good at, depend on, arrive at or in, and listen to. All really common pitfalls worth remembering.
Now let's move to one of the most common categories of mistakes, confusing pairs of words that sound similar or have related but different meanings.
Great idea. Let's start with affect and effect. Affect is usually a verb, meaning to influence something. Effect is usually a noun, meaning the result of that influence. The rain affected our plans, but the effect of the rain was a canceled picnic.
Great distinction. Let's talk about another really common pair, borrow and lend. Borrow means to take something, lend means to give something. A common mistake is saying, "Can you borrow me some money?" when it should be, "Can you lend me some money?" or "Can I borrow some money from you?"
Let's practice this. Jake, use borrow and lend correctly in two separate sentences.
Sure. Could I borrow your pen for a second? And on the other side, I'm happy to lend you my umbrella if you need it.
Perfect. Such a clear demonstration. Let's talk about another common pair, say and tell. Say doesn't usually take a direct object person, while tell does. She said me is incorrect. It should be she told me or she said to me.
Right, that's such a common mistake pattern. Let's practice. Anna, use both say and tell correctly.
Sure, I'll take this one. She told me the meeting was canceled, and then she said it was rescheduled for next week. Perfect example. Let's talk about one more pair, make and do, which honestly confuses learners constantly, since many languages use just one word for both concepts. Generally, make is for creating something. Do is for completing a task or activity. Make dinner, but do the dishes. Make a decision, but do your homework.
Right, and there are definitely some exceptions and set phrases you just need to memorize, but that general pattern helps a lot. Let's practice this. Anna, use both make and do correctly in one sentence.
Sure, I need to make a phone call before I do my grocery shopping this afternoon. Perfect, natural use of both. Let's talk about one final pair, lose and loose. These are spelled so similarly but mean completely different things. Lose is a verb, meaning to misplace something or fail to win. Loose is an adjective, meaning not tight. I don't want to lose my keys versus these pants feel a little loose.
Such an important spelling distinction, since this one especially trips people up in writing.
Now let's talk about mistakes with common phrases and idioms, since these often get slightly twisted or misremembered, even by fairly advanced learners.
Great idea. Let's start with a really common one, for all intensive purposes, which is actually a mishearing of the correct phrase, for all intents and purposes. Honestly, this mistake is so common that even some native speakers say it incorrectly.
That's such a funny one. Let's talk about another common mistake, could care less, which is actually the opposite of the intended meaning. The correct phrase is I couldn't care less, meaning you care so little it's impossible to care any less.
Right, I could care less technically means you still have some room to care less, which isn't usually what people actually mean. Let's practice using the correct version. Anna, use couldn't care less correctly in a sentence.
Sure, I'll take this one. Honestly, I couldn't care less about celebrity gossip. It just doesn't interest me at all. Perfect, natural, correct use. Let's talk about another common phrase mistake. Nip it in the butt instead of the correct version, nip it in the bud, meaning to stop a problem early before it grows.
That one's such a classic mix-up, and honestly, kind of funny once you notice it. Let's talk about one more common mistake. One in the same instead of one and the same, meaning two things that are actually identical.
Great catch! Let's do a quick role play using some of these correctly. Imagine two friends chatting casually.
Honestly, for all intents and purposes, this project is basically finished at this point.
That's great news. I couldn't care less about the small details left as long as the main parts are solid.
Exactly. We really should nip any last-minute issues in the bud before the deadline, though.
Perfect. All three corrected idioms used naturally in one short conversation.
Let's take a fun little detour now and talk about mistakes even native English speakers commonly make, because honestly, this can be really reassuring for learners to hear.
I love this idea. Let's start with your versus your. So many native English speakers mix these up in writing, even though they know the difference when speaking. Your shows possession. Your is a contraction of you are.
Right, and closely related, there, and there. Three words that sound identical but mean completely different things. There shows possession, there indicates location, and there is a contraction of they are.
Let's practice all three correctly in one sentence. Jake, give it a try.
Sure, they're going to meet their friends over there by the fountain.
Perfect. All three used correctly. Let's talk about another really common native English speaker mistake, should of instead of should have. This happens because should of sounds very similar to should of when spoken quickly, but should of is actually grammatically incorrect.
Right, the correct form is always should have, could have, or would have, never should of. Let's talk about one more common native English speaker mistake, mixing up less and fewer. Less is for uncountable nouns, fewer is for countable nouns. Less water, but fewer bottles.
Great example, and honestly, you'll even see this mistake on official store signs sometimes, like 10 items or less in a checkout line, when technically it should be 10 items or fewer.
Such a fun, reassuring point, listeners. If native speakers make these mistakes constantly, you really shouldn't feel discouraged while you're still learning.
All right, time for our full practice conversation, bringing together several common mistakes, corrected naturally, all in one realistic dialogue between two friends catching up.
Let's set the scene. Two friends chatting over coffee, and one of them gently helps correct a few small mistakes along the way, in a natural, supportive way.
Perfect. Here we go.
Hey, how was your trip to Italy?
It was amazing, honestly. I never been somewhere so beautiful before.
That sounds incredible. Though, quick note, it's actually, I've never been. We need have there for the present perfect.
Oh, you're totally right. Thank you. I've never been somewhere so beautiful before. That's better.
Perfect. So did you arrive to Rome first or somewhere else?
Actually, I think you made a small mistake there too. It should be arrive in Rome since it's a city.
Oh, you're totally right. Good catch. Did you arrive in Rome first?
I did, actually, and honestly, everyone were so friendly there.
Small correction again. It should be everyone was, since everyone is singular, even though it feels like it should be plural.
Right, of course. Everyone was so friendly there. Thank you for catching that.
Of course. Honestly, this happens to me constantly too. So, are you good in Italian now after the trip?
I think that should be good at Italian, right?
Yes, exactly. Good catch. Are you good at Italian now?
Not really, honestly, but I definitely learned a few phrases.
That's still a great accomplishment. Could you borrow me your phrase book sometime? I'm actually planning a trip there myself next year.
I think you mean, could you lend me your phrase book since I'd be the one giving it to you?
You're totally right. Could you lend me your phrase book sometime?
Of course, happy to.
Okay, listeners, did you catch all the corrections in that conversation? Present perfect with have, arrive in for cities, everyone was for singular agreement, good at instead of good in, and lend instead of borrow when giving something.
Notice how naturally and kindly those corrections happened, too. No judgment, just gentle, supportive correction between friends. Exactly the tone we want for learning.
See how naturally these common mistakes and corrections weave into a real, everyday conversation? That's exactly the goal today.
Let's talk about something really important now. Not just the mistakes themselves, but how to handle making a mistake gracefully during a real conversation, since this happens to every single English learner regularly.
Great point. Honestly, this connects back to our episode about apologizing too, in a smaller, lighter way. Let's talk about useful phrases for handling a mistake naturally. Sorry, I meant to say, let me correct myself. Actually, that's not quite right. What I meant was,
These are such useful, natural ways to self-correct mid-conversation without feeling embarrassed about it. Let's practice this. Jake, make a small mistake on purpose and then correct yourself naturally.
sure, I goed to the store yesterday. Sorry, I meant to say I went to the store yesterday.
Perfect. Such a natural, confident self-correction. Let's talk about how to respond when someone else corrects you too, since that matters as much. Oh, thank you for catching that. Good point. Let me try again. Of course. Thank you.
Right, receiving correction gracefully is honestly just as important a skill as making the correction itself. Let's practice this. Anna, respond gracefully to a gentle correction. Sure, I'll take this one. Imagine someone just corrected my grammar. Oh, thank you for catching that. I really appreciate it. That's actually a mistake I make a lot.
Perfect. Warm, open, and completely non-defensive. Let's talk about one more important point. Mistakes really are a normal, healthy part of the entire learning process, not something to feel deeply embarrassed about.
Absolutely. And honestly, the more comfortable you become making mistakes openly in conversation, the faster your overall fluency tends to improve because you stop avoiding speaking out of fear.
Let's go through a quick reference list of useful phrases organized by situation, since this can be really handy for listeners to remember.
Great idea. For describing common mistakes, it's a common pitfall. That trips people up. Even native speakers get this wrong.
For self-correcting mid-conversation, sorry, I meant to say, let me correct myself. Actually, what I meant was...
For receiving correction gracefully, thank you for catching that. Good point. Let me try again. Of course, thank you.
For grammar reminders, everyone is, singular verbs with indefinite pronouns, have or has for present perfect, fewer for countable nouns.
For prepositions, married to, good at, depend on, arrive at or in, listen to.
And for word pairs, affect as a verb, effect as a noun, borrow to take, lend to give, say without a direct person object, tell with one to.
That's such a useful toolkit. Listeners, save this list or come back and re-listen to this section a few times until these corrections start feeling automatic.
Let's do a fun role-play marathon. 5 quick scenarios, each featuring one common mistake corrected naturally, so you can hear these tools used again and again in different contexts.
I love this idea. Let's go fast. Scene 1, correcting much versus many.
I don't have much friends in this city yet.
Small correction, it should be many friends since friends is countable.
Oh, right. I don't have many friends in this city yet. Thank you.
Scene 2, correcting effect versus effect.
I had a really positive effect on me.
Quick note, that should be effect since it's the noun form there.
You're right. The medicine had a really positive effect on me.
Scene 3, correcting arrive to.
We arrived to the restaurant a little late.
Small correction, it should be arrived at the restaurant.
Of course, we arrived at the restaurant a little late.
Scene 4, correcting less versus fewer.
I've been eating less vegetables lately.
Quick note, since vegetables are countable, it should be fewer vegetables.
Good catch. I've been eating fewer vegetables lately.
Scene 5, correcting should of.
I should have called you earlier today.
Small correction, it should be should have called you earlier.
Perfect marathon. 5 completely different common mistakes, all corrected naturally within realistic everyday conversation.
Let's do an extended correction round now, a bit longer than usual, since today's whole topic is really about spotting and fixing mistakes. I'll read a sentence with a mistake, and Anna, you fix it.
Let's go.
Sentence 1. She don't like coffee.
Subject-verb agreement issue. It should be she doesn't like coffee.
Correct. Sentence 2. I have 3 advices for you.
Advice is uncountable in English, so it should be I have 3 pieces of advice for you, or simply I have some advice for you.
Great catch. Sentence 3. He is agree with the plan.
Agree is a verb, not an adjective, so it simply should be he agrees with the plan.
Perfect. Sentence 4. I'm looking forward to see you.
After looking forward to, we need a gerund, not the base verb. It should be I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Excellent fix. Sentence 5. The informations you gave me were really helpful.
Information is uncountable in English, so there's no plural s. It should be the information you gave me was really helpful.
Great catch. Sentence 6. I am agree that we should leave early.
Same agree mistake as before. It should be I agree that we should leave early.
Perfect. Sentence 7. He explained me the situation.
Explain needs to before a person. It should be he explained the situation to me.
Excellent. Great job catching all of these, Anna, and great job to listeners who caught them too.
Let's answer a couple of common questions before we wrap up. Jake, what's something learners often ask about mistakes?
A big one is, should I stop mid-sentence to correct myself every single time I make a mistake, or does that interrupt the flow too much?
Great question, and honestly, it really depends on the mistake. For small mistakes that don't change the meaning much, it's often completely fine to just keep going naturally. For mistakes that could genuinely confuse the listener, a quick self-correction is usually worth the small interruption.
That's such a helpful, practical balance. Another common question, should I correct a native speaker's grammar if I notice a mistake, like less instead of fewer?
Good question, and honestly, in most casual settings, it's generally better to let small native speaker mistakes go, since correcting them uninvited can sometimes feel a little awkward, even if you're technically right. It's usually best reserved for close friends or specifically educational contexts like this podcast.
Great practical advice. One more question. Why does English have so many exceptions to its own grammar rules?
Honestly, this comes down to English's really complex history. It's been influenced by so many other languages over centuries, Latin, French, German, and more, which is part of why it has so many irregular patterns and exceptions, rather than one clean, consistent system.
Great, honest answer. I think that covers a lot of really useful ground today.
Let's, before we recap, do one final story, weaving together everything we've discussed today.
I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay, a few years ago, I was helping a friend practice for an important English interview, and honestly, she was so nervous about making even a small mistake, she could barely speak at all during our practice sessions.
That sounds really stressful for her.
It really was. So I decided to try something different. Instead of correcting every single small error immediately, I started genuinely celebrating each mistake she made, treating it like a fun little discovery instead of a failure.
That's such a lovely, creative approach.
It really helped. Slowly, she relaxed more, started speaking more freely, made plenty of mistakes along the way, and honestly, her actual fluency improved so much faster once the fear disappeared.
That's such a powerful lesson, and it really connects to everything we've talked about today.
Exactly. She ended up doing really well in that interview, mistakes and all, and I think that experience genuinely changed how I think about teaching and learning English altogether. Mistakes aren't the enemy. Fear of mistakes usually is.
That's such a beautiful, meaningful story, listeners, and it really shows exactly what we've talked about today. Common mistakes are completely normal, and honestly, embracing them openly usually leads to much faster, more confident progress than fearing them ever could.
Let's do a few more full-length scenes, this time a little longer so we can really hear the whole gentle correction process play out naturally.
Great idea. Let's start with a scene between two coworkers writing an email together.
Okay, can you help me check this email before I send it? I want to make sure it sounds professional.
Of course. Let me take a look. Okay, this line here, I look forward to hear from you. That should actually be, I look forward to hearing from you, since we need the ing form after look forward to.
Oh, good catch. Thank you for fixing that. What about this next part? Please let me know if you have any question.
Small note there too, it should probably be any questions, plural, since you're asking generally, not about one specific question.
That makes sense. Thank you. Anything else stand out to you?
Just one more thing. Right here you wrote, I am looking forward to discuss the project. It should be discussing the project. Same pattern as before, gerund after looking forward to.
Perfect. Thank you so much for catching all of that. This email sounds much more polished now.
Beautiful example, listeners. Notice how naturally and kindly those corrections flowed, focused entirely on helping, never on judgment.
Let's do a second longer scene, this time between two students studying together for an English exam.
Can we practice some sentences together? I want to make sure I understand the present perfect correctly.
Sure, go ahead. Try a sentence.
I have finished my homework since 2 hours ago.
Good try, but actually, since needs a specific starting point, like since 2 o'clock, while for works with a duration, like for 2 hours. So it should be, I finished my homework 2 hours ago, or I have been working on other things for 2 hours since I finished my homework.
Oh, that's such a subtle but important difference. Thank you for explaining that clearly.
Of course. Let's try another one. Tell me about something using for correctly.
I have lived in this city for 5 years.
Perfect. Exactly right. Notice the duration there matches perfectly with for.
Great example, listeners, showing how patient, detailed explanation between study partners can really deepen understanding, not just correct the surface mistake.
Let's do one final longer scene about a parent gently helping their child with English homework.
Mom, is this sentence right? Me and my friend went to the park.
Almost, sweetheart, but usually we say my friend and I, putting the other person first and using I instead of me as the subject of the sentence.
Oh, okay, so my friend and I went to the park.
Exactly right. Well done. What about this next sentence? There is many books on the shelf.
Is it there are, since books is plural?
Exactly. Great thinking. There are many books on the shelf.
Beautiful closing example, listeners, showing how gentle, encouraging correction works beautifully across every age and every relationship, not just between adult learners.
Before we recap, let's spend some time on spelling mistakes specifically, since written English trips up so many learners, even those who speak really fluently.
Great idea. Let's start with one of the most common ones, receive, instead of the correct spelling, receive. A helpful trick here is the classic rule I before E except after C, which actually applies correctly in this word.
Right, though honestly, that rule has plenty of exceptions too, like weird or science, so it's more of a general guide than a perfect rule. Let's talk about another common spelling mistake, definitely instead of definitely. A helpful trick is remembering the word finite is hidden inside definitely.
Great memory trick. Let's talk about one more, separate instead of separate. A useful way to remember this one is that there's a rat hiding inside a rat e.
That's such a fun, memorable trick. Let's talk about occurred instead of occurred, which needs a double R, and which instead of which, missing the silent H.
Let's practice a few of these correctly in sentences. Anna, use definitely and separate correctly.
Sure, I'll definitely need a separate folder for these documents.
Perfect, both spelled and used correctly. Let's talk about one final common spelling mistake. Government instead of government, missing the N in the middle. A helpful trick is remembering that government contains the word govern.
Great tip. These small spelling tricks really do help listeners, especially for words that don't follow English's more predictable patterns.
Let's do a few more quick correction examples before our final recap, focusing specifically on written English this time, like texting or emailing.
Great idea. Let's do a quick scene about a text message exchange between friends.
Okay. Hey, are you free this weekend? I want to go to that new restaurant everyone's been talking about.
Small note there, it should be go to, not go to, since to means also, while to shows direction here.
Oh, good catch. Thank you. I want to go to that new restaurant. Much better.
Perfect. And honestly, that to versus two mix-up is such a classic one in casual texting.
Let's do one more quick scene, this time about a written work message.
They're going to send the updated file by tomorrow morning.
Small correction there, since there shows possession, but here you mean they are going to send the updated file.
You're totally right, thank you. They're going to send the updated file by tomorrow morning. Much better.
Perfect example, listeners. Notice how these small written mistakes are honestly some of the most common ones out there, even among people who speak beautifully in conversation.
Let's talk about one more category before our final recap. Pronunciation mistakes that can actually cause real confusion in conversation, not just written mistakes.
Great idea. Let's start with a classic one, confusing the TH sound with a D or Z sound, saying dis instead of this, or zat instead of that. This is such a common pattern for speakers of many different native languages.
Right, and a helpful tip here is placing your tongue gently between your teeth for the TH sound, rather than fully behind them like for a D sound. Let's talk about another common pronunciation mix-up, ship versus sheep, where the vowel sound length actually changes the entire meaning of the word.
Right, that short versus long vowel distinction trips up so many learners since it doesn't exist the same way in many other languages. Let's talk about one more common one, stress placement on the wrong syllable, like saying comfortable instead of comfortable, which can genuinely make a familiar word sound unrecognizable to a native listener.
Such an important point. Word stress really does matter a lot in English, sometimes even more than getting every individual sound perfectly correct. Let's practice a couple of these. Jake, say a sentence using correct stress on comfortable.
Sure, this chair is really comfortable. I could sit here all day.
Perfect. Natural stress on the first syllable. Let's talk about one more common pronunciation confusion. Very versus berry, which happens for speakers whose native language doesn't distinguish between v and b sounds clearly.
Great example, and honestly, these small pronunciation details, while tricky, usually improve really naturally over time with consistent listening and speaking practice, rather than needing intense, isolated drilling.
Such a reassuring note to end this section on, listeners. Pronunciation, just like every other category we've covered today, really does improve steadily with regular, low-pressure practice.
All right, let's recap everything from today's episode.
We talked about why even advanced learners, and native speakers too, make common mistakes simply because English has so many quirks and exceptions.
We covered common grammar mistakes, singular verbs with words like everyone, much versus many, and the present perfect needing have or has.
We practiced common preposition pairings, married to, good at, depend on, arrive at or in, and listen to.
We explored word confusion pairs, affect versus effect, borrow versus lend, say versus tell, and make versus do.
We corrected common phrase and idiom mistakes, like couldn't care less and nip it in the bud.
We even covered mistakes native speakers commonly make too, your versus your, there, and there, and should have instead of should have.
And we talked about handling mistakes gracefully, both making them and receiving correction, with warmth, openness, and zero judgment.
If you remember nothing else from today, remember this. Mistakes are a completely normal, healthy part of learning any language, and the more comfortable you become making them openly, the faster your real fluency tends to grow.
Such an important, encouraging reminder. And listeners, just like always, practice really is the key here. Try using one of today's corrections out loud this week, in a real sentence with a real person if you can.
Beautifully said. All right, everyone, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with us practicing your English.
We'll see you next time right here for more easy English conversation practice.
Take care and keep speaking.
Bye, everyone.